Subscribe and like this video, more interesting revenge stories of elderly people coming soon. They don't see me anymore. The woman at the register barely looks up as I hand her cash. Her fingers brush mine like I'm made of dust. The teenager stacking shelves doesn't hear when I ask for help, or pretends not to. Even the dog next door stopped barking when I walk by. Maybe I've finally faded enough to slip beneath their senses. Funny, isn't it? I used to fill rooms, with presence, with voice, with consequence. Now I fill a worn chair under a faded window. I sit with my tea that's never quite hot enough, wrap myself in an old tartan blanket, and watch a muted television screen flashing with lives that don't include me. They say time steals things. But no one warns you that time doesn't just take, it erases. My house is still tidy. I've always been a man of structure. My desk is polished, even if no hands shake across it anymore. The garden is trimmed, though no one visits to admire the work. The floor creaks under my steps, but at least it remembers me. My children don't call. Not really. There are obligatory messages, "Happy birthday, Dad," or "Get well soon," when the hospital calls them by mistake. They're successful. My son wears suits I used to pay for. My daughter flies business class to conferences where they say words like leadership and legacy. Strange. Those words used to mean me. And the grandkids, beautiful, bright, disinterested. They sit across from me like I'm a glitch in their schedule. They swipe through their phones as if my silence is just background noise. I asked James once, the eldest, to help me set up an email. He laughed. Not cruelly. Just like he'd already decided I couldn't understand. Maybe I can't. But I remember everything. I remember their birthdays, their allergies, the exact day my son broke his arm, the way my daughter cried when the market crashed. I remember staying awake for 3 nights to save our company from bankruptcy. I remember pawning my grandfather's watch to pay for piano lessons. I remember bleeding for a family that now steps over me like I'm a crack in the pavement. And still, every morning, I rise. Not because I believe in the day. But because I need to. I make my tea. I sit with my thoughts. I write things down, memories, observations, names. I document how the woman at the clinic calls me sweetheart like I'm brain dead. I write how my neighbor didn't offer to help when I dropped my groceries. I remember how the doctor actually sighed, when I asked for a second opinion. None of it is violent. None of it screams. But there's a cut in me that doesn't clot. A quiet hemorrhage. Every humiliation is a drop in the basin. Every dismissal, another inch toward the edge. And something's changing. There's a heat inside me I haven't felt in years. Not rage, not yet. But focus. Like the first flicker of a forge. Like the weight you feel in the air before the storm cracks the sky. They think I'm harmless. Harmless and finished. But I'm neither. I'm just quiet. Watching. Remembering. And slowly, deliberately. Not forgiving. They've rewritten me in their minds. To them, I'm a frail old man who walks too slow, talks too soft, and forgets where he left his glasses. A man who exists only in faded photographs and dusty stories. But they've forgotten the truth. They've forgotten who built the damn house they live in. There was a time, not long ago, not to me, when I was the storm. Not swept up by it. Not running from it. I was the force that moved things. People called me Winfried and their tone changed when they did. My name opened doors, settled arguments, quieted rooms. I wasn't born into power. I became it. I clawed through the mire of the post-war economy, built my first business from broken crates and unpaid invoices. I made decisions that cost me friends and earned me enemies. But I always played the long game. That was the difference. Others were chasing the day, I was building an empire that could survive the decade. And it did. I remember the 90s, the way some men remember combat. While others fled or folded, I adapted. While my partners cried over betrayal, I took the knife out of my back and signed new contracts with the blood. When the banks refused me credit, I mortgaged everything I had, my home, my pride, so my children could study abroad, live above fear. Every sacrifice I made was for them. My son wears a Rolex now. I remember the night I gave it to him. He was graduating. I told him, this doesn't measure time. It measures legacy. He laughed. Youth always laughs at the weight of words it doesn't yet understand. My daughter, she doesn't remember the man who threatened to pull out of a $3 million deal because one client insulted her. She only remembers how I worked late. How I missed a recital. How I missed. That's what they cling to now, my absences. Not the why, only the when. Not the roof I built over their heads during the storm, only the door I closed on the way to the office. But I remember it all. I remember shaking hands with liars and turning them into soldiers. I remember cleaning up after my brother's collapse, after my cousin's addiction. I remember protecting them from secrets that would have broken them. I made myself the shield, so they'd never feel the blade. Now they don't even send postcards from the lives I bought for them. They speak of mindfulness and balance, post quotes about self-care, while the man who carried their world is left to fade into the wallpaper. My phone gathers dust. Not because I don't call, but because I learned not to. You can't reach someone who doesn't look back. But I don't forget. And as I sit here, I revisit every deal, every betrayal, every favor, every weakness I forgave. I remember names. I remember leverage. I remember who owes me, and who thought they got away. They think I'm broken. Just another man in decline. But they mistake silence for surrender. I am not gone. I am not lost. I am simply waiting. It's not the big things that break a man. It's the paper cuts. The quiet degradations. The moments so small, no one else notices, except the one who bleeds. I called my son last week. Not because I needed something. Just to hear his voice. To remind him I was still here. It rang. Then rang again. Then voicemail. Hi, you've reached Matthias. I'm either unavailable or screening. Leave a message and I'll get back to you. He didn't. 3 days later, I saw a photo on his wife's page, them on a yacht, drinks in hand, sun-kissed smiles. I stared at it for too long. Zoomed in, then out. I wanted to see even a flicker of guilt on his face. There was none. Another time, I asked my grandson, the tall one with the chipped tooth and eyes that used to light up when I walked in, to help me with the remote. I just wanted to watch an old western. 5 minutes, maybe less. He sighed, clicked it twice, and tossed it back to me like I was a bother. You should get one of those voice remotes, Grandpa. You just talk at it. I don't need to talk at a machine. I need a person to listen. Then there was the clinic. My legs hurt more these days. So I go in for tests. The nurse looked at me like I was an abandoned coat someone forgot to throw away. The doctor, young, sharp-jawed, smug, didn't even face me as he spoke. He told the nurse, bring him back next week if he's still ticking. Ticking. Like I'm a bomb waiting to fail. A clock winding down. A thing. Not a man. And the worst, was 2 weeks ago. I dropped my groceries. Eggs shattered. Oranges rolled under the car. My back screamed when I bent to pick them up. No one stopped. 2 teenagers walked past. One of them laughed. Not loud. Just that kind of chuckle that says, look at him. I looked at them, too. And I remembered their faces. Every night now, I write. Not poetry. Not memories. Data. Names. Dates. Events. Smirks. Shrugs. Words they said when they thought I wouldn't understand. I catalog their apathy. Their casual violence. Their moral cowardice. Each entry is small. But together, they build something. A map. A plan. They don't realize how much power there is in being overlooked. In being dismissed. While they scroll, post, laugh, climb, I watch. I read. I trace the paths they walk, the lies they tell, the masks they wear. They think I'm senile. They think I've lost the thread. But I haven't lost a single one. The dam is full now. The cracks are forming. And I'm not angry. I'm precise. It happened on a Tuesday. Not that the day matters. They all blur now, soft around the edges like old film reels. But I remember it was Tuesday because I wrote it down afterward. I had gone to the store. Needed milk. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I hoped someone might see me. Not just look, but see. It's foolish, I know. But even a forgotten man still wants to exist. It was raining. My grip isn't what it used to be. The bag tore. The carton rolled out, split open. White puddle on the concrete. I bent down to pick it up, and slipped. I landed hard. The world spun for a second. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. My hand scraped on the pavement, blood mixing with the milk. I was soaked. Shaking. A child cried nearby. A woman laughed. Laughed. And then I heard the voice. Someone help the old guy, or just call a janitor. No one moved. That word again, old. Like it's a species. Like it explains everything. They looked at me like I belonged in the ground, not on the sidewalk. And something inside me shifted. It wasn't rage. Not fire. No explosion. Just a click. A door in my mind creaked open, one I had locked years ago. I felt something walk through it. Not violent. Not loud. But heavy. Intentional. I stood up without help. Carried my broken bag home. My legs ached, but my mind was clearer than it had been in years. I stepped inside. Closed the door behind me. The world fell silent. Then I moved toward the old cabinet in the study, the one no one touches. I opened it. Inside, my father's leather-bound briefcase, still holding secrets. A locked box. My old burner phone. A small pile of printed documents, debts long unpaid. And my black notebook. Not the one I use for names and slights. This one was older. The kind I used when strategy was my livelihood, when I moved people like pieces, when companies rose and fell at my signal. I sat down. No tea. No blanket. I wrote for 6 hours. I wrote down the truth. I mapped out every connection, every opening. My son's foundation, the one he uses to dodge taxes. Vulnerable. My grandson's new influencer deal. Backed by a shady investor with a criminal past. My old business partner. Still hiding the affair he had with his CFO. All of it. Everything they thought buried under time, or hidden behind digital glass. And I remembered, I didn't just build companies. I built leverage. I knew where the bodies were buried, because I helped dig the holes. They've forgotten who taught them how to win. They forgot who cleaned their messes. Who paid their debts. Who destroyed reputations politely. But I didn't forget. And I never lost it. Now, I don't walk like a man. I move like a shadow. They think they're untouchable. They don't know the game has already started. And I've already made the first move. They say old age softens a man. Maybe it softens his steps. Maybe it quiets his breath. But the mind, the real blade, grows sharper when it's no longer dulled by the noise of the world. I became sharper. Invisible men have advantages. People reveal things in front of you, thinking you're harmless. They talk too openly. They whisper too close. They underestimate how much a quiet man hears. And I heard everything. It began with the first message. Not from my number. Not in my voice. An anonymous email sent from a cafe's Wi-Fi, through a maze of rerouters. A simple attachment. A financial document. One my son hoped would never be seen again, proof of a little, creative accounting he assumed was forgotten. The kind that could stain a reputation beyond repair. I didn't send it to the public. I sent it to the board of his company. No threats. No demands. Just truth. And truth, left unattended, is corrosive. Within days, whispers began. Within weeks, meetings behind closed doors. He walked through his office like a man sensing smoke but not finding the fire. By the time they confronted him, the walls were already closing. When he called me that night, panic in his voice, I let it ring. 7 times. Then silence. Next was my grandson, the one whose arrogance grew faster than his talent. He signed a deal with people he didn't understand. Men who looked polished, but whose money smelled of old crimes. I didn't expose the crimes. I simply sent his sponsor a file documenting the incident my grandson caused at a club last year. The one he thought I didn't see. The one the family quietly paid off. Sponsors hate noise. The contract dissolved within hours. He posted online. Some people want to see you fail. I almost laughed. He still hadn't learned. Failure isn't inflicted. Failure is revealed. As for the others, the doctor with his smug condescension, the nurse who called me sweetheart, the neighbor who pretended not to see me bending in pain, I didn't destroy them. I simply illuminated them. An anonymous complaint to the medical board about the doctor's negligence. A video clip, recorded months ago by someone else, but found and forwarded by me, of the nurse mocking a patient in the hallway. A quiet note to the landlord about the neighbor's unregistered business run from his garage. Not one action illegal. Not one step reckless. Just pressure on the exact weak points they'd hoped no one noticed. Everything fell quietly. No explosions. No drama. Just a slow, elegant collapse, dominoes tipping one by one. And through it all, I remained still. A ghost in my own home. A shadow slipping between the days. They began to feel it, an unease in the air. My son called more often now. My daughter wrote long, emotional messages. My grandson came to my door twice, knocking too hard, like he feared the silence more than my presence. But I didn't answer. Why should a ghost open the door? Let them sit with the feeling. Let them stew in the awareness that something is moving just beyond the edge of their vision. Because the truth is simple. You don't fear the monster you see. You fear the one you sense. They came to me on a Sunday. Funny, isn't it? All great confrontations happen on Sundays. Perhaps because guilt weighs heavier when the world outside is quiet. I heard their cars before I saw them. Doors slamming. Murmured voices. Hesitation. My children. My grandchildren. All of them. The same people who once walked past my life like it was an old billboard peeling under the sun. They entered my home the way one steps into a church, afraid to disturb the dust of something older than themselves. My son spoke first. His voice, once full of polished confidence, cracked like thin ice. Dad, things have been happening. We need to talk. He didn't know where to look. Not at me. Not at the floor. His eyes darted like a man searching for exits in a burning room. My daughter followed. She always had a softer tone, but now it trembled. Something's wrong. Everything is falling apart. And we don't know why. The grandchildren stayed near the door, silent. Their phones stayed in their pockets, perhaps for the first time in their lives. Even the arrogant one kept his eyes low. They didn't come for answers. They came for absolution. I let the silence stretch, slow, deliberate, heavy. A silence that once made boardrooms sweat. Now it made my own blood shiver. Finally, I stood. Age bent my bones, but my presence straightened the room. They all watched me. Really watched, as if seeing me for the first time in years. My grandson stepped forward. His voice tiny. "Grandpa, was it you?" A simple question. A child's question. But behind it, terror. The terror of realizing they never understood the man they dismissed. I didn't answer. Instead, I looked at each of them. One by one. Slowly. Deeply. Not with cruelty. Not with hatred. With clarity. The kind of clarity a surgeon has before the first incision. My gaze lingered on my son, the boy I once carried through a storm, now trembling before a breeze. Then on my daughter, who once held my hand crossing the street, now unable to meet my eyes. Then the grandchildren, all potential, wasted on arrogance, now humbled by an invisible force. In that gaze, they received their answer. No confession. No denial. Just truth. Because sometimes silence is not absence. Sometimes silence is judgment. My daughter's lips quivered. "Dad, why?" And for the first time in months, I spoke. Not to punish, I said quietly, but to remind. A breath left the room, as if the walls themselves exhaled. I didn't elaborate. They didn't deserve explanations wrapped in neat sentences. They needed to sit with the weight. To feel the shadow of the man they once ignored. They stood there, small, shaken, exposed, and realized something profound. I never stopped being their pillar. I simply stopped letting them lean. That night, after they finally left, subdued, changed, I opened my notebook. Not the black one. Not the ledger of debts. The other one. My journal. And I wrote the final entry. Asterisk, old age is not weakness. It is clarity. It is the stage of life where masks fade. And truth sharpens. Let them fear the silence. Let them remember the cost of blindness. I am not cruel. I am simply, seen again. Asterisk. I closed the notebook. Set down the pen. Then sat in my chair, not as a ghost, not as a fading man. But as the quiet force they finally recognized.